Hello, I'm Reverend Rick, and it is my honor to be with you today. We really hope that this video is a blessing to you. And if it is, please consider making a donation. People watch our videos locally when they cannot necessarily come to church throughout the United States and the world. So please join us and click the link below and make a donation. Thank you, and let this be a blessing to you.
All right, let us prepare ourselves. If you'll put your hand over your eyes, I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today.
I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today.
Now over your ears, I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today.
I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today.
And now over your heart, and just extend out your arms. I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today.
I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today.
The spiritual truth that we're working with today is that you are whole, perfect, and complete just as you are all of the time. If you're a shy person, you're perfect. If you're a gregarious person, you're perfect. If you're a person who loves to go on lavish vacations, you're perfect. If you're a person who likes to get a little bag of kale chips and put it in your knapsack and go up to the mountains in the hot sun and run around and get chased, you're perfect. Nobody gets to say how you are. Nobody gets to say that you're in the in crowd or not in the in crowd. Only you get to say that. Nobody gets to say how you live, how you love, how you worship, how you work. You get to say that, and only you get to say that. And sometimes, you know, standing up in the face of other people's expectations as to how we should present on the planet can be really challenging. It can be painful for some. But there's help for us. We have ancestors who will help us today look at some ways of expressing that courage. So today we are in our second day of our holiday series. Last week we talked about Bodhi Day, which is the celebration of the enlightenment of the Buddha. Today we're going to look at Hanukkah. Next week we're going to go to the pagan tradition of winter solstice. Following that, we'll have 2 days of Christmas. One, the 23rd, Reverend Rick will come and give us the messages. And on the 24th, our big candle lighting service, I will give the message. And then Kwanzaa is on the 30th. And that's actually our biggest celebration of the month. Because not only do we celebrate it here at church, but then at 4 o'clock we have a program. And following that, we have a feast. So it's a great month. As Rick says, just get it caught and bring it on over. And we're happy to have you here. So it's great. And then don't forget our 4 a.m. meditation, World Peace Meditation. That happens on the 31st. And yes, it is 4 a.m. in the morning where you get up and you come and you meditate with us. Feel free to come in your jammies. We provide a hot breakfast. The Women's Circle provides a hot breakfast. So it's a beautiful celebration as well. So lots to do here. But right now we're looking at Hanukkah, which is the celebration of the Festival of Lights. And it actually is all about understanding the light that we are. Turn to a neighbor and say, "You light up my life." Turn to another one and say, "You light up my life." That's the, okay, all right. That's the purpose. That's the purpose of these celebrations, is to remind ourselves that if we understood what a light we are on the planet, and we were to allow it to shine, we were to take all that crazy lack of self-confidence, that stuff that we pour over ourselves, if we would just take it out and let it shine, this world would be a much better, kinder, more compassionate, more giving, more loving space. And you and I can do that. We can be the people who start that off. Now, with every one of our celebrations, we have an altar brought to us by Rosemary Mayfield or Rebecca Davis, and we have a blessing on the altar. And so today I've asked Tony Newman and her son, Ade Richards, who used to be in our teen program, I just have to say that because I get so excited that he's back, to come and do the blessing. who's with us right today. So proud of you both. Thank you. Whenever we look at the wisdom of Jewish tradition, we always do as they do, which is to tell the story. This story is being told in Jewish homes all across the world, this Hanukkah story. And the reason that and we do that too. So here's the deal. If you've been coming here for a while, I guarantee you, you think you know the story, you think you know what you're going to get out of the story, and the truth is the story doesn't change. The story has not changed for thousands and thousands of years. So we're going to stick with the story. Who has changed is you. I will guarantee you that today there is some challenge in your life that this story can help that wasn't there last year. I can guarantee you that if you don't go to sleep, if you stay alert to the nourishment, you will walk out of here feeling like you got something out of today's church service. But if you go to sleep, if you think you know it, if you forget the Buddha's teaching of a beginner's mind, then chances are you're going to go out and say, oh my God, again? Don't do that to yourselves. Allow yourselves to just be a part of this. The reason that the Jewish families tell this story is not only to teach children their heritage, but also to teach spiritual principle. I love the Jewish proverb that says, God so loved stories that he invented people. And I think that's true. As many of the victim to victory stories, those stories that start out, we think they start out as victim, they actually started out as victory stories and then went quickly from victory to victim in their life. And that's what happened for the Jews in the Persian Empire in a place called Judea. Under the authority of Alexander the Great, the king at the time, they had life pretty good. They were slaves, but Alexander the Great respected how they dressed, how they talked, how they worshipped. He just let them be. Now they had their chores to do, but he let them be in all of the ways of their lifestyle. And they lived in peace, and they built a beautiful temple high on the hill of Jerusalem. And in that temple was a beautiful ark in which the sacred scrolls lived in this ark. And it was a good time. Regretfully, Alexander the Great dies, and a king named Antiochus comes into power. And Antiochus was fearful of the Jews. He was fearful because they dressed differently, because they spoke differently, because they worshipped only one God and not the many gods that the Greeks worshipped. Now, I don't want to get too hung up on this point, but I don't want to leave it too quickly either. And that is to remind us that we are all, each and every one of us, are all the parts of this story. All of them. And that's true of every sacred scriptural story. We're in consciousness, we're all parts of the story. We're Alexander the Great when we let other people be who they want to be and don't try and control them. Even in our mind, we just let them be who they want to be. We're, because Alexander the Great, he did have this fundamental understanding, I think, and that is that he knew God was God, and any way you got there was a good way. And so, while that wasn't his way, he just let folks be. We're Alexander the Great when we do that. We're Antiochus when we try and control people, when we're fearful of people, when we don't understand people, and we try and control their limit their expression of the God that they want to be on the planet. You know, and all of us have this. All of us have this need to want to control other people. And it's not only people of the dominant culture trying to control people who are the so-called non-dominant culture. It's all of us have to look at this in our life. And where are we being Antiochus and trying to control other folks? And those of us who are not part of the majority group in every area of our life have to look at this as well. For instance, as a lesbian, there are sometimes I wish I could control the behavior of other lesbians. I wish they wouldn't act in a certain way. Why? Because I think it reflects on me. It doesn't. But that's my fear. My fear is if I could control them. You know, I know that every time I hear of a shooting or some terrible thing happening, in my heart I say, God, I hope it wasn't a gay person. And I think that there are probably other people in this room who also are not part of the majority who feel that same way. When we feel that same way, what we're trying to do is to, in consciousness at least, and sometimes more verbally, we're trying to control the behavior of other people. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. All we do is create more separation in the world, and we make ourselves less comfortable in the world. See, what happened with Antiochus is he got so upset that he threw what I call the Hanukkah temper tantrum. He went up into that beautiful temple that they held, and he brought his soldiers up there. He brought a pig up there, which was not allowed in Jewish culture. He slaughtered the pig. The blood ran all over the big, beautiful ark that was there, and it was a big mess. It was a sad, terrible mess. And he thought by throwing such a temper tantrum as this, that would put an end to it. It didn't. It didn't. No matter how many temper tantrums you and I throw in our life, if the people for whom we're trying to control through our temper tantrum have any sense of who they are, it may work in the short term. It may work in the 5 minutes that they're in front of you, but it won't work in the long term. Temper tantrums simply don't work. If they worked, then the Jews would all be singing Greek songs today. It just doesn't work. So what we want to begin to look at is that the presence of God is stronger within, is stronger than any fear-activated limitation outside of us. Even standing up to scary people who want us to be something other than we are. This is who I am. I am no mistake. I am here on purpose. I am here on God's purpose. This is who I am. I am no mistake. I am here on purpose. I am here on God's purpose. Say that with me. This is who I am. I am no mistake. I am here on purpose. I am here on God's purpose. And so it was with the Jews. They had Antiochus not only went to their main temple, but he went to all of the villages, and he tried to get the men to bow down to these statues, these Greek god statues. And some of them did. And some of them did. And I like to touch upon this part of the story during Hanukkah because I think it has spiritual nourishment for us. We have to be very non-judgmental. We have to be careful with our judging of people who don't have courage in a moment we wish they had courage. We have to have compassion for them. We have to have love for them. All of us, well, I don't know if all of us, but I suspect the majority of us, I certainly have passed some time in this lifetime when I thought it would be better for me if I passed, if I tried to be something I wasn't. And I think all of us have tried to do that, to keep ourselves safe. We try and present. Maybe you're trying to present as somebody who got a college degree, and all of a sudden, but you didn't have a college degree, but you just prayed nobody would find out that you actually didn't have it. It's not. Yeah, I'll grab it. And then let's get please. Okay. Oh, good. Now I'm really loud. Now I can really holler. Okay, so some of us may have tried to pass off as college graduates, and we weren't college graduates. Maybe some of us tried to pass off as people who never popped their kid, when we know we popped our kid once or twice when they were growing up. Maybe we tried to pass ourselves off as somebody who had our money trip absolutely together. And we prayed the prayer, I hope they don't find out how broke I actually am. We've all done it. It's the wrong prayer to be praying. The prayer we need to be praying is, God, let me know that I have the courage to stand up and be honest and authentic of who I am. Let me present who I am. I am here on purpose. I am here for God's purpose in my life. This is who I am. I am no mistake in my life. Well, so he went to all the villages, Antiochus and his men, and he tried to get these guys to bow down. And one of them threw off the soldiers and said, no, I'm not doing this. Whoever is for God's and God and God's laws, whoever is for God and God's laws, follow me. Whoever is for God and God's laws, follow me. And 5 of his sons did follow him, and they became known as the Maccabees. Now the Maccabees is a little band of rebels. And it's important that we know this. This is my annual reminder. Are you in a rebel band? Everybody in this church is a rebel band itself. And we need to use this as our shooting point to get into other rebel bands, either inside the church or go out on the street and get in a rebel band. See, here is the definition of a rebel. A rebel is someone who is against false evidence appearing real in people's lives. A rebel is someone who is against false evidence appearing real in people's lives. You and I all need to be those kinds of rebels. When we see somebody being put down, when we see somebody being hurt. And you know, I talk a lot about societal hurts, but I also don't want to forget that there are personal, familial hurts that we need to take care of one another around. We need to share it. We need to talk about it. We need to be there and hold one another and pray with one another and allow one another to cry. We can do that in our life, and that is spiritual practice that is pretty powerful. Well, the word Maccabee simply means hammer. They were called the hammers, and the reason they were called the hammers is because they would hide in the caves by night and run out and then hammer back the Antiochus's army, and then they would run back in. Now, I love this part of the story because metaphorically for you and I, it's very important. You and I have this idea sometimes, I think, that we can heal ourselves within the twinkling of an eye. Now, I think that there is healing that goes on that appears to happen at the twinkling of an eye. But the truth is, there's been a consciousness upload, a consciousness shift up until that moment when the healing happened in the twinkling of an eye. So those of you who think that you can take 30 years of being told you're not enough and have one affirmation that you say one time and you're going to be healed, maybe, but probably you're going to have to be a Maccabee. Probably you're going to have to heal it, hammer it back, and just hammer it and hammer it and hammer it in your life until you actually get it. You are enough. You are more than enough. You are who you are, and you're not here by mistake. You're here on purpose. You're here on God's purpose. Well, they began to grow in strength, and the reason that they grew in strength is because their intention and commitment was a beacon for people who wanted change. And you and I can be that beacon for people who want change. When we have an intention in our life and we stick to that intention through very challenging times, through people coming after us, and yet we stick with that intention, we become a beacon for other people, and they will begin to join us and support us and lift us up and allow ourselves to lift other people up. Well, the Maccabees, Antiochus was furious. He said, okay, I'm done with this. I am done with all these gnats coming at us and picking off our guys. I'm going to bring the whole entire army, and we're going to have one battle, and we'll just finish this off right now. So the night of the battle, Antiochus's army came. Everybody knew they were there because they were so big. And they got up in the morning. They had a nice big breakfast. And they got their armor all on, ready for battle. Now, this could be a small point, but I actually think it's one of the biggest points for us in the spiritual nourishment of the story. And that is this. When you and I get up in the morning and we're going to go to work, and we think we're going to have a fight with somebody, or we're going to have a tough day with our teenager, or we're going to get a call from the mother-in-law, whatever it is that we think we're going to face, and we're getting ready for it, Instead of finding a presence of God in that person, what we do is we get our armor on. We get our defenses lined up. We get our stories lined up. We get our blamer tuned up. And then we go into battle. How much more successful would we be if we left all that and we just went in naked to solve, to communicate, to seek to be understood as well as to understand? What if we did that? I think that if we celebrated Hanukkah with just that commitment this week, that we would go into every difficult situation that might be coming up with the understanding that we're going to go in there not with any defenses, but with love in our heart for that other person. And we will fake it until we make it. It may be challenging to find love in your heart for that person, but you and I can do that. We're spiritual warriors, and we know how to do that. Well, the story is that they chased all of Antiochus's people out, and then they went back to the temple. Now, if you went to most communities to hear this story, most of the time the clergy would put on this portion of the story. I actually think it's important. I think it's critical. I think if when I say it, it's the only thing you remember, that's a good thing. But I think there's so much more in this story than just what happens now. So they go back in. The place is a mess. You know, there's blood on the ark. There's windows are broken. Pews are broken. Just a mess. And they did what you and I need to learn how to do better. When we're faced something that awful in our life, when we have a devastation in our life, what they did was they sat down and cried. They wept. They took time to feel the feelings. And that's what we have to do. We have to begin to go in, and when we have something, know that it will end. I told this story at the first service, and I forgot to tell you, it's that time when, you know, when we put people out of our heart, when we put people out of our mind, and we call them other, and we stick them over there, we miss blessings in our life. We don't even know how many blessings we miss in our life. There was a time in my life when my daughter was taken from me, and it was the bleakest time I've ever had. And I, for years, especially the first 2 years, all I could do was go to work and go home and cry, and go to work and go home and cry, and go to work and come home and cry. And I did that for 2 years. I owned a home in Santa Rosa, and there was a sprinkler that was broken, and water was going out. I had to deal with it. And so I went to one of those little tiny hardware stores. Yes, thank you. Not a big box one, but a little box one. And I don't know about you, I'm not a landscape person, I don't know anything about landscaping, so I go over to where I think all the stuff is that I should have, and I look at it, and if you ever go into a rack of something, whether it's toothpaste or plumbing gear or whatever it is, and you have no idea what you're looking at, you have no clue, and that's what was true with me. And so this guy comes over, and you know, he was totally scary looking. I mean, he had hair all everywhere, you could have it, and tattoos everywhere, and you know, his jeans could have walked over by themselves, they were so grimy. And so he utters something, and I think it is going to help you, but I'm not sure, but I think it is. So my intention was to say, I need to find something that will work on a wet hose bib, and or whatever it was, sprinkler thing. And that's about as articulate as I was going to be, too. But all I got out was, I need something that will work. And I started to cry. And I couldn't stop. And I just cried and cried and cried. And this guy, this big bear of an ugly, dirty man, picked me up and held me so tight. And he says, we're going to make it work. We're going to make it work. And when he did that, I realized I could have missed that blessing in a heartbeat. I could have missed that blessing. And the truth is, I suspect each and every one of us miss blessings every day because we put people over there. We put them in the other category. We're afraid of them, like Antiochus was afraid of the Jews. And so we put them out instead of bringing them in where they can heal us. Because I'll tell you right now, I love all bikers. I just love them. Funkier your jeans, better. There's great nourishment in the store, but back to where I was going with this. So at the end, it's time now, they've cleaned everything up, and now they need to light the eternal flame. And they only have enough oil for one day, and it takes 8 days to get more oil. What they did is so powerful. If there's nothing you remember from today but this, remember this. They didn't wait. They didn't try and figure out what the best plan was. They didn't try and decide whether it was going to work or not. They simply acted. They lit the candle. They started. They weren't sure if it would work, but they started. They had faith. There's something in each of our lives that wants to shift. I don't know what it is for you, but I know there's something in your life that is wanting to shift. You know what that is. Maybe you're not entirely conscious of it right now, but you have kind of just a notion of what it might be. Figure it out. And then begin. Don't worry about how it's going to look in the end. Don't worry about if you have enough resources to go all the way through with it. Start. Let's take this message into prayer. There's only one power. It's the power of the greatest love on the planet, the agape love, the love for one another, the love that comes from God, through God, to God. I give thanks for that. I release this word into the one together we say.